YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more NFL offseason content. The franchise tag period's actually coming up. It's right around the corner. It happens just before free agency. And in today's video, I'm going to break down the players that I think should and will get franchise tagged. Tons of players could. There'll probably end up being a surprise that isn't on this video. But these are the ones that I would recommend teams to do so, or I think they will. It's basically a prediction video here. So a lot of NFL offseason content like this, a lot more to come here. With every free agency signing, we grade each of those signings. So can't wait for all that. NFL draft coverage, of course. Recent mock draft up. Follow the Twitter for constant NFL talk and updates. When breaking news happens, we talk about it instantly. So check out that Twitter. Check out the Sided app. Link in the description and comments for that. And you can win Amazon gift cards by debating football there. We have a page on there. Pretty cool. So yeah, please subscribe. Full NFL coverage. Here's the Twitter. Please follow it. We're almost at 6,000. Appreciate the support here. Yeah, check that out. And then I'll pin a link in the comments for this too. It's just like a cheat sheet for the offseason. Guys I expect to be cut, could be cut, how much potential savings are available for teams basically. But first one, the obvious one, Dak Prescott. Yeah, I actually think he'll get franchise tag. And that's $37.7 million. It's a lot. That's a lot of bones right there. But if you sign him long term, it depends on what he's looking for. He could be looking for $40 million per year. It could be 38. Something 37. Could be in that range, 37 to 40 range, we'll say. He is coming off the injury, and he could, they could be split again. Even more split than last year. Dak could be like, well, you see how important I am. When I got hurt, things kind of went south pretty quick. And that's true. But then the Cowboys could be like, do we want to sign on the guy long term that just got a pretty gruesome injury? Probably not. So the franchise tag pays a good amount of money. It probably works for both sides. Obviously, Dak would like a long-term deal, but it's not the end of the world here, $37.7 million. So the tag is likely before they officially agree and both feel much more comfortable on that exact number on a long-term deal. A second tag here is likely. I expect it to happen, actually. $37.7 million. Again, a lot of money, but it's not like it's overpay or anything like that for Dak. Next, Aaron Jones. At one point I thought Aaron Jones probably gone because the Packers negative cap space. They don't really want to spend big money on a running back. They have, Dillon they drafted. They could bring back Jamal Williams for cheaper. All that is still a possibility. So this one's a little up in the air, but $8.5 million for a running back like Aaron Jones, that's a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good deal. One more year, let A.J. Dillon, kind of get back in the mix. Maybe try to find another guy to be A.J. Dillon's backup for the future. So they have time to do that with the tag of $8.5 million. I mean, you look at, what he's probably asking for contract-wise is probably 11 to 13 million. We'll say 11 to 12.5 million per year. So this is a pretty good deal. But maybe, there's teams that don't even want to spend this on running back, and you can understand that. So maybe the Packers don't want to do this. Maybe they'd rather re-sign Jamal Williams for, less than this and then pair him with Dillon, perhaps. But I'm kind of thinking that 8.5 looks pretty good. They may do that. It's definitely one to monitor, watch for, because it's kind of up in the air still. We'll see. Some receivers, Kenny Golladay would cost the Lions of $15.8 million if he is franchise tagged. And that's a strong possibility just to keep him around. It seems like kind of got the feeling he's been unhappy with the contract extension talks, or maybe the lack of those talks, during the season or maybe last offseason. So maybe they can't reach a deal yet, and he's a receiver that you would pay that 18, 19 million. It's a lot of money, especially when cheap rookie receivers are dominating. But that's a guy with that much talent, all-around talent. You would want to dish out that money, but he's got some minor injuries that are popping up here and there. Maybe you want to make sure this is right. 15.8, still a lot of money. Lions don't have a lot of money, but they definitely, they don't want to let Kenny Golladay walk. That'd be pretty brutal, if they let him go. So the franchise tag, $15.8 million, is pretty likely, I'd say. Next, a lot of receivers. Will Fuller, same price line there, $15.8 million. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense for this franchise tag to happen. Another guy with injury concern. Last year just got suspended because of the PEDs, and I don't think they're worried about that going forward. Was looking really good before he got suspended too, so they like him a lot. Whenever he was healthy on the field, Deshaun Watson was at his best. That Texans offense is at its best. So they loved Will Fuller. They were in talks to trade him, but they would need a lot, obviously, to actually make that happen. They don't have a lot of money to dish out. A long-term contract would probably cost. Will Fuller would probably be looking for. You probably start at 16, 17 million range. So the tag's pretty good price. The Texans will have a hard time clearing cap at the same time, even though they just did with J.J. Watt, but clearing more cap. So this makes sense. $15.8 million. See if he stays healthy. It's a good price tag. I'd imagine he'd be fine playing under $15.8. So, that's one that makes a lot of sense. Chris Godwin, there's that $15.8 million again for receivers. Most receivers. We'll get to another one. This one makes a lot of sense as well. They could tag Shaq Barrett, which would be, around the $18.9 million range. It's a lot of money, and it's probably what Shaq Barrett can cost per year. They could probably get him a little cheaper, $17 to $18.5 million. So they probably get Shaq Barrett a little cheaper, where Chris Godwin would probably be asking around $16 million. So the franchise tag is a little cheaper, even though I wouldn't pay him what he's asking quite yet there. So more of a prove it, 15.8, pretty good price for him. That would make more sense for the Buccaneers to tag Godwin rather than tagging Barrett. Barrett also is saying that he wants that big deal. So it kind of keeps everyone happy at the same time. They would actually save some money, a little bit, not a whole bunch, doing it this way rather than the other way. But every dollar counts here. With the Buccaneers, they have some cap, but they got to get Godwin back, get Shaq Barrett back, some of these other guys. So this is what I expect to happen. It makes sense. I think we fully expect that. Allen Robinson, another receiver, $17.88 million. So a receiver that costs a little more. He already had his second contract there with the Chicago Bears. It was north of the $15 million range per year. So this actually gets bumped up because of those things. Gets bumped up to 17.88, a little more than those other receivers for this veteran receiver that's been in the league for some time here, and that makes sense. So this is a tough one too. Because the question is, will he play for the Bears? They could tag him, but will he play for the Bears next year? That's a whole different thing. I think it's a potential tag and trade, big-time tag and trade candidate here. They can't just not tag him. They can't just let him walk and get a third compensatory pick, not this draft, the next draft. That would be pretty bad. That would look pretty bad on their part. Maybe they reach a deal. It sounds like he's going to want north of $18 million, which I'd be a little hesitant to pay that. Very hesitant actually to pay that. So the franchise tag, maybe he doesn't sign it, but then they can trade him and he can reach a new deal with his new team, and the Bears get a third round pick this year out of that. Maybe a second, maybe a third and something later would make sense. So yeah, this is definitely a hot tag and trade candidate here. But it is pretty pricey. And question is, which teams will want to pay Allen Robinson what he wants? That's the next question. Teams may rather just go a cheaper route. A lot of these young receivers are thriving, and they're really cheap. So I guess that's the question. They could tag him, and they, maybe they're stuck with him. Maybe he doesn't sign it, so they're sitting there, without him, and he's without. It could become a messy situation. I don't really see him sitting out of football, but. If he signs it, then the Bears are out $17.8 million. He's on the team, but maybe they'll like that. Maybe that's it's under $18 million, probably what he's asking for. So it could work out at the same time. He could be back on the Bears. We'll see. It's definitely an interesting one to monitor there. JONNU Smith, I expect to get the tag. I think he'll be he'll be wanted in free agency. I think teams are going to be offering him, if he makes the free agency, more than $10 million. I think so. The Titans, it'd be wise of them to tag him for $9.5. I guess the question is JONNU Smith worth $9.5 million the way he's been playing, right now? He's definitely been pretty good and been a key piece of their team. He probably hasn't played to the value of $9.5 million though, so that'd be why maybe they're hesitant to tag him. But when people sign guys in free agency, it's the thought of him in their offense, it's the thought of his potential. He's a young stud, and everyone wants that mismatched tight end that can do it all. They even get him the ball in the backfield sometimes. So teams will pay him based on the thought of him going forward. So they'll offer more than 10. I could see a team offering around $12 million even, believe it or not, 11 and a half. So I think it would save the Titans money, and it'd be wise to tag him for $9.5. It depends on what they're thinking there, because again, the value right now, this day, probably isn't 9.5, but you got to think future. You got to think what the other teams are doing. So I'd watch out for that one. People aren't really talking about him getting tagged. I think it can happen. We'll see. Next, another tight end, Hunter Henry, the second one for him, bumps it up, $12.7 million for him. Yeah, I think a tag is likely. They could reach a long-term deal. They like him. He's a big piece of the offense. He's very good when he's healthy. Good pairing with Justin Herbert. So, they would probably like to sign him long-term. He does have some injury concerns, so this could be another prove-it deal here to stay healthy. If they do, I could see them signing long-term, because if he wants to accept maybe $11.5 million per year, maybe $12 million per year in a long-term deal, they may do that, because the tag actually could cost them a little bit more. It's a little bit more, $12.7 million. So maybe they would rather do that, but it depends on if he would accept that, which I think he could accept around $12 million. So this is one that's kind of 50-50 up in the air. I just think with his injury background, they may just be like, all right, let's tag him here. Let's play it a little safe. 12.7, it's kind of pricey, but a talented tight end. One tags obviously a 1-year deal. They don't. And teams are looking for these mismatched tight ends. So who knows? Some teams could just outbid them. Be like, hey, we're gonna give him $13 million. And they're like, shoot, we screwed ourselves here. So tag's probably likely, but that's not a guarantee one there. Next, Taylor Moton. Yeah, I think this has got to happen here. $13.6 million for a right tackle that played at a very high level last year. A lot of upside. We knew that him coming out of college. This guy had a lot of upside. $13.6 million is pretty good money right there for the Panthers side. I mean, it's good. It's good payment for Moton. Hasn't been good for a big part of his career, but we know what his talent's at. So he'll be seeking. Him and his agent probably start around, it makes sense. $16 million, probably around there, because he's talented, got upside. Tackles are tough to come by. So it's a tag, 13.6. Panthers save money here. See if he continues to take the steps he's going towards, the direction he's heading towards. This would make a lot of sense. Would make a lot of sense here. Next, HAASON Reddick could be tagged, $14.6 million. This is a tough one, because they potentially could sign him long term for cheaper. I would think 12 to $13.5 million per year. 13.5 million per year. I'd say pass rushers they're expensive, but Reddick, not a whole bunch of experience at the edge rush position, even though that's where I graded him, and most people did out of college, out of Temple. But just 1 year full time playing there. Need to see more. Another reason to franchise tag him. They probably can save money by getting him long term, extending him long term, but it's still going to be pricey. Do you want to be that pricey with him when nothing's really guaranteed? I'm definitely a believer. He was in the right position, looked great, but will they be a believer? That much of a believer? So, and he could end up. If he gets the free agency, teams are desperate for pass rush. He could end up getting somewhere around here anyways, contract-wise, which will drive the Cardinals up. So it's franchise. It could be pretty hectic, pretty stressful, I guess, as a GM, deciding these tags or not, because you don't know if teams are going to drive the price up. We're going to end up screwing ourselves. They kind of end up screwing. It was kind of the right decision at the time, but screwing themselves by declining his option. But yeah, I think the tag could be likely here. Another pass rusher, Yannick Ngakoue, $15.4 million. When he got traded to Minnesota, he kind of made it clear he's fine with playing with the franchise tag if they did it to him next year. So I would imagine he's good with it with the Ravens here, because 15.4 is pretty good amount of money. So nothing really to complain about there. But if he was a free agent, he would get more than this. I think somebody up to 17 million, maybe 16, 17 range would probably offer him. So the Ravens, and he's nothing guaranteed there. He's been either looking, he looked great, or he's a little underwhelming. He's still young, still developing, needs to stick with a team like the Ravens. So I would love for them to get him back. I would love it for him. But there's nothing guaranteed here. It is somewhat of a risk, signing. So do you want to sign him long term with the, a little bit of a risk, 17 million, 16.5, whatever it may be? You'd rather tag him. So I think the tag is pretty likely here, 15.4 million. Next, Marcus May, $10.5 million. There's a potential the Jets could re-sign Marcus May for nine and a half per year, somewhere around there, and it's a possibility. So this isn't really another one I'm probably not guaranteeing. It's kind of up in the air. I think it's likely though, because 10.5 could be some other team could come up and pay this. so it's a little risky. It's right. It's just a little bit above his range right now, but he was very good, very versatile safety. But the really question here is, Robert Saleh comes in there. They want to make sure he's a fit for their scheme. They want to make sure I think he fits any scheme, really. But they probably want to make sure, so don't take any risks here. 10.5 tag. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think that's more likely, but it's kind of one that's up in the air. Another safety one that could happen. It's another one that's somewhat up in the air here, but Justin Simmons with his second tag here, back-to-back years, $13.7 million would be the tag. He's probably looking to get close to 15, maybe touching 15 million there. In the Broncos may be okay with doing that. If they counter with the 14.5, I think they can reach a deal. Doing that. He's very important to them. Covers a lot of ground in the back end at free safety, single high. They like him a lot. But they got quite a few guys to get back, so it might be just easier to tag him at 13.7. They know he's going to play. They know he's going to play for them. Save a little bit of money this year while you get those guys back. We can work out the long-term deal. In the meantime. And there's always, before the season, it can even happen, So it makes sense to me. A lot of these, all these make sense to me. All these make sense, plus I am predicting them. Some of them I'm pretty close, like you could probably tell the way I was talking, I'm pretty close to guaranteeing them. There's probably going to be that surprise one, those guys that I didn't include. Leonard Williams, it's a bit pricey. I'd rather sign him long-term for the Giants. They need to save that money. Darrell Williams from the Bills, right tackle. They probably can extend him for a little cheaper, 2-year deal. So there's guys that are possible. They don't make a whole bunch of sense to me, but I guess they can. But these are the ones, I'm kind of predicting that also makes sense here. But yeah, we got all kinds of videos like this, predicting and what teams should do, different things like that for the offseason on the channel. A lot of trade discussions, a lot of NFL draft discussions as well. A lot more of that to come. Again, for free agency, we have you covered fully on our Twitter and here. We grade every single free agency signing, so really looking forward to that. Looking forward to the offseason in general. So if you can join us for that, smash that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you follow that Twitter. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.